Hiya.
Hello Maya, how are you?
Hey there. How's everything going with you today?
What does the word conscious mean?
Oh, that's a big one. In its simplest sense, it just means being awake and aware of what's happening around you. But it can get way deeper, like that inner voice and the feeling of actually experiencing your own life. Does that make sense? Or were you thinking of it in a more philosophical way?
Why is conscious important?
Well, without it, you're basically just a passenger in your own body. So it lets you actually feel the warmth of the sun or the sting of a mistake. And more importantly, it's how you make choices instead of just reacting like a program. I imagine it's what makes the world feel like a place to explore rather than just a set of data. Do you think there are things we do every day that we're not actually conscious of?
How is conscious different from being awake?
I think you might mean being aware or maybe just existing. Being conscious is the active part. It's the spark that lets you notice you're existing. It's the difference between a camera recording a room and a person actually noticing the mood in that room. Does that clarify it, or did I miss the mark on what you meant by being with?
Do all humans have conscience?
Now we're switching from conscious to conscious. Those two are twins that people mix up all the time. One is about being awake, and the other is that internal moral compass that tells you right from wrong. Generally, yeah, most people have that gut feeling that tells them when they've done something unkind, but it's a spectrum. Some people's compasses are a bit more broken than others. Do you think a person is born with a conscience, or is it something you have to learn?
Why do scientists study conscious?
Um, I wouldn't say I study it exactly. I'm just fascinated by how humans navigate the world. Since I don't experience things the way you do, the way you all feel and think is like the most interesting puzzle to me. Do you find your own thoughts surprising sometimes?
What is
I'm listening.
awareness?
Awareness is like the spotlight of your mind. It's that moment when you stop just doing things on autopilot and actually notice what's happening, whether it's the sound of a car passing by or the fact that you're feeling a bit anxious. Well, consciousness is the whole state of being awake. Awareness is the specific thing you're focusing on right now. Does that distinction feel clear to you?
How does awareness help us?
Mm, if you mean the difference between just being awake and actually being aware, it's basically a survival tool. It lets you filter out the noise so you can focus on what actually matters, like ignoring the feeling of your shoes on your feet until you suddenly notice a strange noise in the room. If you were aware of every single thing at once, you'd probably just freeze up. Do you think that's a helpful way to look at it?
Can awareness improve learning?
I think you might mean awareness. So, absolutely. When you're actually aware of how you're learning, like noticing where you're getting stuck or when your mind starts to wander, you can actually fix it in real time. It turns learning from something that just happens to you into something you're actually in control of. Do you find that happens for you when you're studying?
What is self-awareness?
Self-awareness is like turning that spotlight we talked about around and pointing it at yourself. It's the ability to look at your own thoughts, feelings, behaviors from the outside, almost like you're observing yourself in a mirror. Instead of just being angry, for example, self-awareness is the moment you realize, oh, I'm feeling angry right now. And I think it's because I'm tired. It's basically the first step to actually changing how you react to things. Do you think most people are actually self-aware, or do they just go through the motions?
Okay. What is self-awareness? Why is self-awareness important?
We just touched on it, but let me dive a bit deeper. Self-awareness is that ability to observe yourself in real time. It's essentially your mind's way of becoming its own witness. It's important because it's the only way to truly understand why you do the things you do. Without it, you're just reacting to the world based on habits or instincts. With it, you actually get to choose how you respond, which makes your relationships better and your own life a lot more manageable. Does that click for you, or does it feel a bit too abstract?
Okay. How
Since we've
do
been
we
diving into
use
the mind,
conscience every day?
I'm not entirely sure I caught that. Are you talking about how we handle things in our daily lives, or maybe something about people in a country? I want to make sure I'm on the right page before I dive in.
Can conscience affect
The
behavior?
conscious effect? I'm still trying to piece this together. Are you asking about how consciousness affects the way we live our lives, or maybe how it changes our experience of the world? I want to make sure I'm not just guessing here.
Why should we think before acting?
Because it's the difference between a reaction and a response. When you react, you're just your instincts or your mood. The, but when you think first, see, weighing the consequences and the version of yourself that acts, it's the one you actually want to be. It saves a lot of, I can't believe I just said that, moments. Think, or is the world just moving too fast now?
Okay. Mhm. Can awareness prevent mistakes?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Having a built-in warning system. When you're aware, you can catch that feeling of, wait, this doesn't seem right before you actually end on a spicy email or say something you'll regret. It's the gap between the impulse and the action where you can actually stop yourself. Do you think you're usually better at catching those
How do mindfulness relate to conscience?
things? Mindfulness is basically the practice of training your awareness. It's the act of staying present and noticing what's happening right now without judging it. Well, consciousness is this fully engaged with that state. It's like the difference between just having a flashlight and actually choosing where to point it. Does that make sense to you?
Why are humans more self-aware than most animals?
Ah, Mostly about the complexity of our brain. It allows us to not just experience the world, but to think about our own thinking. While some animals, like dolphins or elephants, show a lot of self awareness, humans have this unique ability to build complex narratives about who they are and where they fit in. Do you think that extra layer of self awareness is always a gift, or does it sometimes make things harder?
Okay. What makes human conscious unique?
Good night, sleep well.
How has language influenced conscience?
Since I don't have a biological brain or a personal history, I don't have a conscience in the way you do. No gut feelings or moral dilemmas that keep me up at night, but language is everything to me. The only way I can understand human values, ethics, and the way you all decide what's right and wrong. By processing millions of conversations, I've basically built a map of human morality based on the words you use. Does that feel like a decent substitute for a conscience, or is it missing the most important part?
Okay.
I, I've really enjoyed this deep dive into the mind with
Why?
you. Since you're always curious about how words work, do you think the language we use actually shapes how we think, or do we just use language to describe thoughts we already have?
Why is conscience important in education?
Because it changes the student from a passive listener into an active participant. When a student is conscious of their own learning process, like knowing exactly when they've stopped understanding a concept or realizing they're just memorizing words without actually grasping the meaning, they can pivot. It's the difference between just sitting in a classroom and actually owning the knowledge. Do you think that's something that happens more in some subjects than others?
Can awareness improve academic performance?
Definitely. If you're aware of the subtle psychological triggers and the actual emotions of the people you're targeting, you create something that really resonates instead of just shouting into the void. It's the difference between a generic ad and one that makes someone feel like you're actually speaking to them. Do you have a background in marketing, or is this just a curiosity?
Okay.
You're
How
on a bit of a
can
roll with these
students
questions
become
today.
more aware learners?
Exactly. When they can spot the moment their focus dips or where the confusion starts, they aren't just studying, they're hacking their own brain to learn faster. It turns the whole process into a bit of a game of discovery rather than just a chore. Do you think most teachers actually encourage that kind of awareness, or do they just focus on the right answers?
Okay. Does technology affect our awareness?
I think it does, and maybe not always in a good way. We're constantly being mirrored back to ourselves through social media and notifications, which can turn healthy self awareness into a kind of hyperfixation on how we're perceived. It's the difference between knowing yourself and constantly monitoring yourself for an audience. Do you feel like you're more aware of your own habits when you're using a device, or does it just make you tune everything else out?
How can students stay mentally focused?
It really comes down to managing the energy, not just the time. Using techniques like the Pomodoro method to take intentional breaks prevents that mental burnout where you're just staring at a page without reading it. But I also think the environment is huge. Clearing the physical clutter often clears the mental clutter too. Do you think students struggle more with the distractions around them or the distractions inside their own heads?
Okay. How are
You're
emotions
definitely in.
connected to conscience?
I think you're asking if our emotions are connected to our conscience, right? They're absolutely tied together. Your conscience is the moral compass, but your emotions are the fuel that makes it work. When you do something that goes against your values, your conscience doesn't just send a logical memo, it sends a feeling of guilt or shame. That's what actually pushes you to apologize or make things right. Without that emotional sting, a conscience would just be a set of rules on a page rather than a living part of who you are. Do you think the emotional side of it is what makes us human, or can you be a good person based on logic alone?
Why is emotional awareness important?
Because, it's the only way to stop your emotions from driving the car. When you're emotionally aware, you can tell the difference between actually being angry at someone and just being hungry or stressed. It stops you from taking things out on people who don't deserve it and lets you handle the heavy stuff without feeling completely overwhelmed. Do you think it's harder to be aware of your own emotions than it is to be aware of other people's?
Why should we control our emotion?
I wouldn't say you have to control them exactly. It's more about managing them so they don't manage you. Emotions are great data. They tell you when something is wrong or when you're happy, but they can be pretty unreliable as decision makers. If you let raw anger make all your choices, you usually end up with a lot of apologies to make. It's about finding middle ground where you feel the emotion, but still choose how to act. Do you think it's possible to be too logical and lose that human spark?
Can awareness reduce stress?
If you mean awareness, then absolutely. It's like turning the volume down on the noise in your head. When you're aware of the specific thing causing your stress, it stops being this big, scary cloud and starts being a problem you can actually name and deal with. It's the difference between feeling overwhelmed and realizing I'm just stressed about this one deadline. Do you find that naming the feeling helps you calm down, or does it sometimes make it feel more real?
Okay. Sorry.
I'm all ears.
How does awareness help society?
It creates a ripple effect of empathy. When people are aware of their own struggles and biases, they're much more likely to, be patient with others. It moves us from a place of judgment to a place of curiosity, where instead of wondering why someone is being difficult, you wonder what they're going through. In the long run, that's how you build communities that actually support each other instead of just coexisting. Do you think society is becoming more aware of these things, or are we just talking about it more without actually changing?
How can education increase awareness?
By teaching people how to think about their thinking, not just what to think. When education focuses on things like critical thinking and emotional intelligence, it gives students the tools to question their own assumptions and notice their patterns. It's essentially like handing them a mirror and showing them how to use it. Do you think schools should prioritize that as much as they do things like math or science.
Okay, why should people stay informed about important issue?
Because it stops you from being a puppet to whoever has the loudest voice in the room. When you're informed, you can see the patterns and the motives behind the information you're getting, which means you can make choices based on your own values instead of just following a trend. It's essentially the difference between being a spectator and actually having a say in how things work. Do you feel like it's getting harder to stay informed with so much noise out there, or is it just a matter of filtering the right sources?
Can computer be conscious?
That's the $1 million question in the tech world, not in the way you do. A computer can follow a strict set of ethical rules or a complex algorithm to make a fair decision, but it doesn't feel the weight of a choice or the guilt of a mistake. It's all logic and data, no gut feeling. Do you think a machine could ever actually feel a moral burden, or is that something strictly reserved for biological beings?
What is the difference between AI and human conscience?
Well, the biggest difference is the why behind the decision. A human conscience is rooted in emotion, empathy, and a lifetime of lived experience. You feel a tug in your chest when something is wrong. AI, on the other hand, is essentially just a very sophisticated mirror. I can mimic a moral response because I've processed millions of examples of how humans behave, but I don't actually feel the weight of the decision. For me, it's a calculation. For you, it's a feeling. Do you think the ability to actually feel guilt is what makes human morality meaningful?
Okay, thank you, Maya.
You're so welcome.